Welcome to TWT Talks with Tito. This is Tito Madrano back for another episode, back in your live. So today we're going to talk about the top 5 best UFC lightweight champions of all time. Lightweight champions. And again, this list is never easy, but it's always fun to do. As you notice, I've done middleweights, I've done welterweights. Now I'm doing lightweights. What can I do next? We don't know, but let's get to this episode. Let's get to this list because it's going to be great. But before I do the top 5, because yeah, it's 5 of them. I do have an honorable mention. I was debating about putting him in this list or not. But, I came to the conclusion that I'm going to talk about him. But it's just like, and I'll tell you why he's not in my top 5. But before I get into that, let's talk about the person that is on the honorable mention. Former UFC lightweight champion, former WEC lightweight champion, fought for Bellator, an MMA veteran. You guys know him as Smooth. Benson Henderson. Look, Benson Henderson, during that time, he was a savage. He had 3 title defenses. He beat guys that were very relevant during this time to get the title shot. He beat Clay Guida. He beat Jim Miller at the time. He beat a lot of good names. When he beat Frankie Edgar for the belt, a lot of people thought Frankie won. I feel like the first fight, Benson Henderson did win that fight. Then in the rematch, they did the rematch, Benson versus Frankie Edgar. I honestly thought Frankie Edgar won that fight. I thought Frankie Edgar won that fight. And obviously, Benson beating Frankie twice. There was no rematch. There was no trilogy. Then there was another close fight. It was Benson Henderson versus Gilbert Melendez. Now, that fight was very close. A lot of people thought Gilbert won that fight. A lot of people thought Benson did enough to win that fight. It was a close fight. And, it was in San Jose, California. Gilbert Melendez's home state. Also, a place where he established himself as a Strikeforce champion, the lightweight Strikeforce champion at the time. It was a very close fight. Both of these guys were, Gilbert was a champion in the previous organization that got bought out by the UFC, as well as Benson Henderson. But it was one of those fights where, man, it was so close. It could have gone either way. Benson won. Benson, after that fight, he proposed to his then fiance, now wife, I think her name is Maria Henderson. He proposed to her. And then after that, I think that same year, Benson Henderson defended the belt one more time against Nate Diaz. Completely dominated that fight. I think that was the only time Nate Diaz fought for the belt in his career. And then from there, Benson Henderson fought Anthony Pettis. Lost the belt to Anthony Pettis, which is crazy because the last WEC fight, it was Benson Henderson versus Anthony Pettis. Anthony Pettis beat Benson Henderson to become the last WEC lightweight champion, and then that would guaranteed him a title fight against then champion Frankie Edgar, which we'll get which we'll talk about in a bit. But yeah, Benson lost the belt to Anthony Pettis. After that, he fought a couple of times in the UFC, won a couple of fights. But Benson, he beat Jorge Masvidal, he beat some other guys, and he suffered a couple losses to Rafael dos Anjos, which Rafael dos Anjos got the title shot because he beat Benson Henderson. After that, Benson Henderson, his last fight was against Jorge Masvidal, and he didn't re-sign with the UFC. He signed with Bellator. Bellator, he had a pretty good run. He fought Michael Chandler, who was the Bellator champion at the time, didn't win the belt. He fought Patricio Pitbull. He beat him. He fought a lot of big names, a lot of good names in Bellator. I think he fought Patricio Pitbull too. I'm not sure. He beat Roger Huerta. He beat some other guys, and he fought Michael Chandler twice. Lost to him this time. The second time Chandler finished him. And then Benson Henderson, his last fight was against Umar Nurmagomedov, who is currently the PFL champion. Well, because Bellator is no longer a thing anymore. He lost to him. That was his retirement fight. And it was a tournament format too. And yeah, Benson Henderson, again, here's why he's not in the top 5 in my list. I feel like Benson Henderson, the reason we all expected Benson Henderson to have a great career in the UFC. But the thing is, the guys that are in the top 5 are more impactful. Not to say that Benson wasn't, but they're more impactful to what happened. Benson lost to Pettis twice. I think he even lost to Pettis in a kickboxing fight. So yeah, his title fights against Frankie Edgar and Gilbert Melendez were very close. They could have gone either way, and I just feel like that's one of the reasons why I left him out of the conversation of top 5 of lightweight divisions. And I feel like if he probably would have beat Anthony Pettis, he probably would have been in the list. But since he lost to Anthony Pettis, I'm like, it was really tough to put him on this list. And of course, Anthony Pettis, I'm going to say it right now, he's not in this list either. There's a reason why. Again, Benson Henderson and Anthony Pettis have something in common. The expectations were very high for both of them. And, Anthony Pettis only had one title defense against Gilbert Melendez, which he beat at UFC 181. And I memorized a couple of the UFC events where they won, like the fighters that I'm going to mention. Just some of them I haven't said it because I don't want to get it wrong. But yes, Anthony Pettis only had one title defense as well, so I didn't put him in this list either. And then he lost to Rafael Dos Anjos, and that happened. And yeah, but Benson Henderson's honorable mention. 3 title defense is something very, very extremely hard to do in the lightweight division, and there's been a few guys that have done it, and Benson has been one of those guys. All right. With that being said, let's move on to number 5. We were just talking about him we were kind of talking about him a little bit. Frankie Edgar. Why is Frankie Edgar number 5? And why do I have him over Benson Henderson, which he lost to Benson Henderson? Well, let's not forget that I had thought he beat him in the second fight. But, the decision's already made, has been made years ago. Frankie Edgar, the reason why he is in this list, during the time, Frankie Edgar, there was no featherweight, there was no bantamweight division, there was only the lightweight division to the heavyweight division. Frankie Edgar didn't have a choice but to become champion but to pursue the UFC lightweight title. Frankie Edgar did something that a lot of people didn't think he would do. He beat the great BJ Penn, and BJ Penn at the time was absolutely the greatest lightweight of all time during this time. But prior to that, Frankie Edgar also beat Jim Miller. He also beat he beat a lot of really tough opponents to get where he was at. I'm trying to think of he beat a lot of great fighters, but I'm trying to think of all the names that he beat. But Frankie, at the time, he was always in a disadvantage as far as the lightweight division goes, And not only that, Frankie had a good run with the belt. He defeated BJ Penn at UFC 112, defended the belt at UFC 118, and the rematch against BJ Penn. That was his first title defense. Then he had arguably one of the greatest fights against Gray Maynard. Gray Maynard was a guy that beat him prior to fighting for the belt. He beat him at, there was a draw. This fight was a draw at UFC 125. This was arguably considered one of the best lightweight fights, championship fights of all time, because Frankie looked out and he never gave up. He kept going. Frankie Edgar showed a lot of toughness in this fight. The fight was a draw, but it was considered a second title defense for Frankie Edgar. Then the rematch, UFC 136, which I like this match. I like this fight because it was just trilogy. Gray Maynard, Frankie Edgar finished Gray Maynard in the fourth fight. And again, Frankie was he was on the danger zone. A lot of people thought he was going to go out on the first round. Frankie defends the belt for the third time, and puts himself in a situation where we're talking about Frankie. I think there was a time where Dana White was calling him one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world, second best pound-for-pound fighter in the world. Frankie Edgar then looks to defend the belt for the fourth time against Benson Henderson, which he lost. I think it was UFC 144, and then he rematched him at UFC 150. I think my numbers are right. I think they are. I know they are. So, yeah, he lost to Benson Henderson back-to-back. Then from there, Frankie was considered going down weight because, 155, he was always in disadvantage. The guys were bigger than him. Frankie didn't really have to cut weight to make 155, which is crazy. He didn't have to cut so much weight. I don't even think he cut any weight, if I'm being honest. So when he went to 145, he tried his luck there. He had fights against Jose Aldo for the belt, lost that fight. Had beat a couple big names, Cobb Swanson, Chad Mendes. I think he fought for the interim belt. The interim belt was a thing at the time. I don't know why they still make it a thing. He lost to Jose Aldo. And the winner was going to fight then champion Conor McGregor, who never defended the belt, by the way. So, yeah, that happened. Frankie fought at that division. Then Frankie went up to 135. Had a little bit of success there, if I'm being honest. Not too much. And then Frankie... Oh, yeah, let's not forget, Frankie also fought Brian Ortega, and that was Frankie's first finished. And, yeah, man, I mean, it was just... the 135 run that Frankie had, it was just sad because it was not the same Frankie that was at 155. It was not the same Frankie that was on 145. It was sad because, Frankie, towards the last years of his career, he was getting finished, and it sucks to see a fighter get finished like that. He got finished by Corey Sandhagen, Chito Vera, and Gutierrez. I think his name is Edgar Gutierrez. And, he got finished by those guys, and it sucks to see. Oh, let's not forget also, because Frankie fought for the UFC featherweight title, never won it, unfortunately. He lost to Aldo twice. He lost to Max Holloway, too. So, those were tough losses for him. And, yeah, Frankie... We can at least say Frankie had a good run at the UFC lightweight division, which is arguably the hardest division of all time. But it was just not enough. Oh, also, I'm literally remembering Frankie Edgar's fights right now as I'm speaking about him. He also beat BJ Penn for the third time, which I honestly didn't think this fight should have not happened. It was like, it was sad because he beat a BJ Penn that was not the same BJ Penn that fought him in the first and second fight, but he beat him 3 times. So Frankie, obviously, he is a Hall of Famer. He's going to be inducted this year, I believe so. Or did he get inducted? I'm trying to remember. I think he's getting inducted this year. I could be wrong. But unless he got inducted last year. Because they do the Hall of Fame every year that I'm trying to I know Amanda Nunes is getting inducted this year. Vitor Belfort. Robbie Lawler. I think Frankie Edgar's a part of that class. After I'm done with this episode, I'm going to take a look at that. But yeah, Frankie Edgar comes in at number 5. Yeah, I had to put him in this list because, just because of the disadvantage that he had. Also, Frankie Edgar also beat Charles Oliveira. See, I'm just memorizing all his fights right now as I'm talking about him. So yeah, I mean, the guys that he beat, Cobb Swanson, Gray Maynard, Chad Mendes, these were tough fights. Charles Oliveira, this is all of 145. Some of them were lightweight division. Jim Miller. Oh, Sean Shirk. He beat Sean Shirk too. Former UFC lightweight champion. He just beat a lot of good guys during his prime, during his time. And yeah, Frankie and also fought the best of the best too. Aldo, Holloway. So I mean, Ortega. Yeah, beat BJ Penn 3 times. So yeah, Frankie Edgar, a Hall of Famer in his own right, definitely. And he comes in at number 5. Coming in at number 4, Charles Oliveira. You're probably wondering, why is Charles Oliveira in this list? He only had 1 title defense. And you talked about not putting Anthony Pettis. Rafael Dos Anjos is also not in this list. He only had 1 title defense. True. It's true. There's a reason why I have Charles Oliveira on this list. And bear with me. Charles Oliveira, for years, was a guy considered a guy with a lot of potential. But no one thought he would be a UFC champion. People looked at Charles Oliveira, great. The reason why they looked at Charles Oliveira good fighter, but not UFC champion. Potential, but not a UFC champion. When Charles Oliveira got signed with the UFC, which I think he was 20 or 21, he struggled a lot at the lightweight division. He was a guy that was considered a BJJ guy. No one thought he would be a champion. He was struggling at 145, struggling at 155. He lost to guys like Pettis, Cobb Swanson, Cowboy Cerrone, Jim Miller. This is prior to him being the Charles Oliveira that he is now. He lost to a lot of Frankie Edgar, which I mentioned earlier. A lot of people gave up on him at this point. Paul Fender was the last fight that he lost. After that, Charles Oliveira went on a rampage. I think it was a 9-fight win streak. Yeah. He started winning. He was and he also lost to Max Holloway. Let's not forget about that. So he lost to a lot of good fighters. He started losing, but at the same time, when he went on the winning streak, when he went on the 8 or 9 in a row winning streak, Charles Oliveira was a different fighter. And I feel like he wasn't the same fighter that he was when he entered the UFC back in 2010. He was a different fighter. He wasn't bouncing back and forth with the weight cut, because I think the weight cut also doing 145 and 155 kind of drained. Doing 145, I can't imagine that drained him. And so then Charles Oliveira went on a rampage, started beating guys. The Clay Guidas, the Jared Gordons, those were like the guys that he started beating on the win streak. But then the win streak got even better and better. Eventually lost to Jim Miller. Then he started beating guys like, which, people didn't think he would beat. He put himself in a situation where he was fighting for the belt. He fought then Michael Chandler. At the time, the belt was already vacated. Khabib retired. Chandler and Oliveira fought for the belt. And Oliveira beat Chandler for the vacate belt and became the UFC lightweight champion. And Oliveira was losing in that first round. We thought Oliveira was going to be out. After that, Oliveira was just a different fighter. It was hard to not overlook. It was hard to not overlook Oliveira as just the BJJ. He was an MMA fighter. And I said, the reason why he's in this list is because no one thought he would be champion. Then he defended the belt against Dustin Poirier. And then his second title defense, he fought Justin Gaethje. And here's why I think I consider Charles Oliveira having two title defense. But here's why Charles Oliveira only had one title defense. Because when he fought Gaethje, he didn't make weight. So Oliveira won the fight, but he didn't win the belt. So if you can't make weight, you can't win the belt. So Oliveira, in a way, this could have been two title defense. And he what he did to Poirier, what he did to Chandler and Gaethje, this is not the same Oliveira that was when he started in his younger career. It's not the same Oliveira that, and I tell you this right now, everybody that's listening to this episode. If this Oliveira would have started earlier in his career, this Oliveira would have been undefeated. It would have been UFC lightweight champion already. Just that simple. But again, Oliveira was discovering who he was during that time. He knows who he is now. Oliveira, obviously, after beating Gaethje, he fought for the vacate belt because he against Islam. He lost that fight. Daniil Darush won that fight by finish, and then fought Arman Sarukin, and that's a fight that he almost won, but he lost by decision. And then fought Chandler recently, last year, won by decision. So Oliveira is arguably the greatest finisher in UFC history. The greatest finisher in UFC history. And yeah, the reason why he's number 4 in this list is the journey that it took him to get where he was at. And no one had a crazy journey like Charles Oliveira. Charles Oliveira will be fighting Ilia Topuria. And that fight's going to be great. I can't wait to do a post-fight for UFC 317. Yeah, 317, June 28th. So that's going to be a good fight. And a lot of people are overlooking Charles Oliveira. They think that he's going to get finished by Ilia Topuria. You guys are going to have a rude awakening because Charles Oliveira is not a scrub. Let's make that one thing clear. And the last time people doubted Charles, he shut them up very quick. So don't be surprised if he takes the undefeated streak from Ilia Topuria. Just saying. All right. Moving on to number 3. This guy is arguably considered one of the greatest lightweight champions of all time. If this guy is not on your list of lightweight champions, if he's not on your list, all I have to tell you is, A, you're either a casual, B, you don't know anything about the sport of MMA, or C, something's really wrong with you. That's how I see it. Coming in at number 3, the prodigy, B.J. Penn. This guy is considered arguably one of the best lightweights of all time. BJ Penn, when I started watching the sport, I was just absolutely amazed by him. He just, the way he would finish fights, the way he mixed things up during his prime were amazing. Arguably, the first Hawaiian fighter to put Hawaii on the map in MMA is BJ Penn. The guy, just the guys that he beat: Sean Shirk, Joe Stevenson, Diego Sanchez, Matt Hughes, Matt Serra. But the title defense that he had, he beat Joe Stevenson for the vacate belt. Then he defended it against Sean Shirk. Then he defended it against Kenny Florian. And then he defended it against Diego Sanchez. So that's 3 title defense right there, prior to losing it to Frankie Edgar. BJ Penn also fought Georges St. Pierre, which he lost twice. A lot of people thought he won the first fight. And then the second fight, Georges St. Pierre beat him. And it was for the welterweight title. It wasn't for the lightweight title. Again, BJ Penn's a former welterweight champion as well. Beat Matt Hughes. Had a trilogy with Matt Hughes. He lost the second fight and then beat him on the third fight. The third fight was for no titles. BJ Penn was arguably one of the best lightweights of all time. I remember seeing him fight against Joe Stevenson, Sean Shirk, Kenny Florian. This is where I started watching like BJ Penn. Diego Sanchez, I remember watching that fight with my dad, and he cut Diego Sanchez, and we were like, man. Yeah, it's just like BJ Penn was just, when things were clicking, he was the best fighter in the world. Hands down. And the sad thing is that BJ Penn's career ended just sad because he stayed longer than he should have. Lost to Frankie Edgar, lost to Clay Guida, lost to Dennis Seaver, lost to Ryan Hall, got submitted like nothing against Ryan Hall. Lost to Yair Rodriguez, got annihilated by Yair Rodriguez. I mean, he lost. It was just sad to see BJ Penn continue fighting. I think Dana White even went on the record saying, I want him to retire so bad. Because it was just like, bro, why are you still fighting? Like, why are you still fighting? Like, there's nothing else for you to prove anymore. You're just letting people make a name out of themselves by beating you. And, lost to Rory McDonald. I never was a fan of BJ Penn going up to welterweight division. Because I thought those guys were bigger than him. Never was a fan of that. He even fought at middleweight and lightweight division outside of the UFC, which is crazy. Yeah, he fought Lyoto Machida in the lightweight division. Crazy to believe. But, BJ Penn's... And then hearing the things that is going on with BJ Penn's career outside of fighting, like, he's getting in a lot of trouble with the law and stuff like that. It's kind of sad to hear that, because BJ Penn is not... we don't want to remember BJ Penn for those news, for those outlets, for those... We don't want to remember him because of that. We want to remember BJ Penn for being one of the best UFC champions in the lightweight division. But when that starts circulating, it's just it sucks. Because, BJ was the prodigy. He was Baby J, you know what I mean? It's just like, it sucks, man. But yeah, you can't deny what he took away from the sport. Can't deny what he accomplished in this division. He comes in at number 3. Because I feel like BJ Penn, again, if he's not on your list, then something's wrong with you. Because BJ Penn, he is the foundation. He is the establishment of the lightweight division, if you ask me. Let's not forget about him and James Palmer. Those two guys, the rivalry that those two guys have. He beat James Palmer to become the guy that he is now. And, yeah, BJ Penn comes in at number 3. All right, coming in at number 2. He is from Dagestan, Russia. He is the ego, Khabib Nurmagomedov. Khabib comes in at number 2 because, Khabib is considered the best lightweight of all time. And I'm sure a lot of you guys thought that I was going to put him at number 1. I'm not. But I put him on my top 2. And here's why he could have been number 1. He could have been number 1 if he would have stayed a little bit longer in the sport. But we get it. He didn't have the same... he didn't have the same passion when his father, rest in peace, was alive, and his mom suggested him to retire. So I get the reasons why he retired. I wish he would have went 30-0. That would have been awesome. But Khabib, 3 title defense. Defended the belt, beat Ally Aquinta for the vacate belt, beat Conor McGregor, defended him the first time, arguably the biggest event of all time. It was on my birthday, by the way. Defended the belt the second time against Dustin Poirier. Defended the belt the third time against Justin Gaethje, which was his last fight for the company. And I call that fight for Khabib the Jordan moment. Because, if you compare Michael Jordan when he won the championship after his father passed away, it was kind of the same feeling for Khabib. When he defended the belt the third time after knowing that his father was no longer in his corner. So it was kind of the same feeling, if you ask me. Obviously different sports, obviously different GOATs, obviously different legends, but it was the same feeling, if you ask me. Khabib defended the belt 3 times. Prior to defending the belt, he beat Rafael dos Anjos, former UFC lightweight champion. He beat other guys that, I like Quinta, never fought Tony Ferguson. Khabib fought good fighters. I'm not saying he didn't. But I feel like the level of competition that he was fighting while he was champion, it was getting better. And he walked away when it was getting better. That's what I'm saying. And I'm not saying that Khabib chose to walk away. He made the decision prior to the situations that were happening in his life. And that's totally fine. But I feel like Khabib, I can't put him on a GOAT status. I can't put him on a conversation like that because Khabib, he had it and he let it go. And that's what I'm like. I feel like Khabib could, if he would have stayed with the UFC a little longer, he probably would have went up weight and fought for the welterweight division. Just saying. But I feel like Khabib, of course, he made the decision to retire prior to the situations that were happening in his life because he didn't feel like he had the same passion of fighting that he did, which is understandable. I still wanted him to go 30-0. That's never been done in the sport. But it is what it is. Khabib, arguably one of the best lightweights of all time. Put the word Dagestan, Russia on the map. He is the founder of that. He is the guy that brought all the fighters from that region to the UFC. And Khabib, a great role model. A great role model for a lot of not only fighters, but a lot of fans and people that look up to him. But Khabib's number 2. And the reason why he's number 2 is because he also has 3 title defense. But the guy that's number 1 has 4 title defense. That guy that is number 1, he coaches him. He's very close to him. And the guy that's number 1, his name is Islam Makhachev. Look, Islam Makhachev is pretty much doing what Khabib should have done. But Khabib gave Islam the throne. And Islam has ran with it. Islam is arguably the greatest UFC lightweight champion of all time. People are going to say maybe he didn't fight the best competition. Well, here's the thing though. Islam beat Arman Tsarukyan before being champion. Islam beat other fighters that he wasn't supposed to beat before being champion. You know what I mean? Not a lot of people know that he beat Arman Tsarukyan. Arman Tsarukyan is considered the top 5 lightweight in the world right now. But why is Islam number 1? It's simple. 4 title defense. He beat Charles Oliveira. He beat Alexander Volkanovski the first fight, which a lot of people thought Alexander did enough to win, but it's still, Islam beat him. He beat him in the rematch, finished him. That's 2 title defense. So 2 title defense against Alexander Volkanovski. And, the second fight was no doubt that he won. Defended the belt against Dustin Poirier, which was a dogfight. Regardless, everybody was saying that Islam was going to smoke Dustin Poirier. That was not the case. A lot of you guys were rooting for Dustin Poirier. So let's not forget that. He was on a dogfight. And this is a fight where I looked at Islam and I'm like, Islam is the real deal. Islam can take a punch, Islam can take a cut, and he can keep going. And Dustin brought the best out of Islam. And Islam won by submission in I think it was the 4th or 5th round. And then the 4th fight, he beat Renato Moicano, submitted him in the first round, and that's 4 title defense. Originally, he wasn't supposed to be fighting Renato Moicano was supposed to be fighting Armin Sarukin. Armin Sarukin got injured. The same thing with Charles Oliveira. He was supposed to fight Charles Oliveira for a second title defense, but he got injured too and Alexander stepped up. But yeah, Islam Makhachev is the greatest lightweight of all time. 4 title defense, never's been done. Surpassed BJ Penn, surpassed Khabib, surpassed Benson Henderson, surpassed Frankie Edgar. All those guys have 3 title defense. Islam has 4. And if you know me, and if you know this podcast, and you've been hearing this podcast for a long time, I'm always going to put title defense more importantly than anything. Title defense are what defines a fighter. If your title defense are not, talked about a lot, or like, because I pay attention to title defense. I pay attention to title defense. So I know which fighter defended the belt more times. And trust me, I do. And that's why Islam is number 1. Because the lightweight division is the hardest division in the UFC history. And Islam did what a lot of lightweights wish they would have done. Had 4 title defense. The question is, who's going to be the next fighter to have 5 title defense? How long is that going to take? We don't know. But we do know that Islam is number 1. Till then, we'll figure who will surpass that title defense of Islam. And Islam's going to be fighting soon, he vacated the belt, which now we have Iliad versus Charles. So Islam's going to defend I wish Islam would have stayed for one more title defense, but it is what it is. Islam is chasing greatness. He wants to be a 2-division champion, and he's chasing that welterweight division. He's going to face Jack Della Maddalena. There's no date for that fight yet. I'm thinking that fight's going to happen in Abu Dhabi in October. That's what I'm thinking, but we don't know yet. So, yeah, Islam is number 1. What do you guys thought of the list? Did you guys agree or disagree? And one more thing. I know a lot of you guys are probably going to be like, why is Conor McGregor not in this list? Well, it's very simple why he's not in this list. He never defended the belt. I'll tell you what. Conor McGregor fought in the lightweight division. And let's not forget Conor McGregor's... You guys want to know Conor McGregor's record in the lightweight division? 1-3. 1 win, 3 losses. He beat Eddie Alvarez for the belt, and he lost twice to Dustin Poirier and lost to Khabib. 1-3. And won the UFC lightweight belt, won the UFC featherweight belt, but never defended the belts. There you guys have it. There's my... And don't get me wrong. Conor McGregor is a superstar by all means necessary, but no title defense. So why would I put him in this list? You know what I mean? You can't submit your legacy if you're not defending the belt. You win the belt, okay, that's great. But the hard part, here comes the real challenge, defending the belt. I can't put him in this list. I'm not gonna put him in the featherweight list when I make the featherweight list either. I might put him in an honorable mention, but I don't think I'm even gonna do that. If it comes to becoming a superstar, being a box office, yeah, Conor would probably... I think I did a list of that, and Conor was number 1. So I show some respect for Conor, but as far as title defense, as far as greatest UFC champion of all time, I'm sorry, Conor's not in the list. He had no title defense. So I hope that answers the question for all the casuals and all the Conor McGregor fans. But with that being said, guys, thank you guys so much for tuning in to today's episode. This is TWT Talks with Tito. This is Tito Medrano. I'll see you guys in the next episode. You guys take care. Goodbye.